This is Radio Free Hillsdale, 101.7 FM. I'm Scott Bertram, and with me today, State Senator Mike Shirkey from the 16th State Senate District, Branch, Hillsdale, and Jackson counties, and also Senate Majority Leader. Senator, thanks for joining us.
Scott, it's been a long time since I've been on, and I've kind of missed our conversations, so thanks for having me back.
Well, I've missed you too, and our listeners have missed you too. It has been a little while, and since the last time we've talked, we in the state of Michigan have seen this spike in COVID cases, pretty significant in certain areas of the state. And the reaction this time, Senator, has been different. We are not dealing with increased mandates and rules from Lansing. We are hearing more of something that we have talked about previously in our conversations, this encouraging and modeling good behavior or proper behavior, however you want to couch it, for residents across the state. That seems to be the focus this time. Why do you think the change occurred?
Well, if you go back to some of our previous interviews, you will hear me say repeatedly that the way to, my opinion of the way to we should have approached it from the beginning, after we learned exactly what we were up against. There was this 4 to 6 weeks where none of us were sure. Mm-hmm. But it was 4 words: inform, inspire, encourage, and trust people to do do the right things. And that didn't take root until this most recent spike. And there was an interaction between myself and, I'm not going to say who in the administration, and basically the question was, things aren't so good right now, what do you recommend? And I simply said, inform, inspire, encourage, and trust. And lo and behold, for whatever reason, I'm not taking credit for it, but that's precisely kind of where we've landed here, and we're staying the course. And I happen to know firsthand that Governor Whitmer is getting a lot of pressure to go back to the lockdown modality. And to her credit, she's resisting it, and so we should be. I'm not going to project myself on others. I am grateful that she's taking that stand right now, and of course I wish we'd have done it sooner. Mm-hmm. But I'm not going to go down that road. I'm just grateful that she's standing firm, and there is already indication that the numbers are going to have started to flatten and decline. So it was, a wonderful change in strategy, and we should celebrate it and not look too far back in the rearview mirror.
Senator, you mentioned the governor, your relationship with the governor. We read recently that there was a face-to-face between the two of you for the first time in quite some time. How would you describe your relationship at this point with Governor Whitmer, and what did you guys talk about when you finally were talking face-to-face?
It was 8 months since our last face-to-face meeting, and we've now had 2 consecutive weeks where we've gotten together and talked. Basically, we're talking about where do we go from here. And we have kind of all agreed, the speaker included, that we're not going to reveal much of those conversations until we build a stronger foundation of trust. And so, but I just hope that people recognize that that's a major change, and I believe that based on the interactions so far, that all 3 of us are committed to, continuing that trend, and I look forward to reporting back to you, or actually I look forward more to seeing it manifest publicly. And if some of your listeners are so inclined, have them pray for that as well.
I know you just said you don't want to go into too many details. I respect that, but I do want to ask if the topic of the federal money which has been awarded to Michigan, there of course have been some delays in figuring out how to spend that and getting the governor's approval on those plans. Is that one of those topics that has been discussed? Are you encouraged by what's been said so far?
It would be safe to assume that that is part of the long list of topics that have been discussed, and that's about all I'm going to say, Scott, just out of respect for our commitment to one another.
All right. Detroit News had an op-ed by Senator Mike Shirkey in the Sunday edition which, by the way, I think is the best part of the Sunday Free Press, is the Sunday Detroit News op-ed page. We all need IDs, so let's expand access. This is, of course, in partial reference to Michigan's voting laws and some of the election law changes that the Senate and the House are working on. But there's a bigger point here about we all need IDs. You say so right in the title of the piece. We use them every day without even thinking sometimes, those of us who have them. It's a burden. It's a hurdle for those who don't have them. So how do we solve that problem?
Yeah, I'm glad you brought it up. The genesis of the op-ed, from my perspective, was driven by a reaction by a number of CEOs across the state of Michigan who sent a personal letter, for the most part, critiquing the fact that we dare to introduce legislation that would require more specifics as it relates to identification and voting. And they spoke about and referenced the fact that there's just too many people who don't have an ID. It's difficult for them to get that, and it's akin to voter suppression. And so instead of fighting back on that notion, which I reject, but I didn't focus on it, I thought to myself, well, wait a minute. In the 21st century, we really have obstacles for people getting an ID. How can you actually – there's very little you can do in life today without having an identification. And so started the research and found out that it is in fact true that there's a number of people who do not or have not chosen or have real hurdles, impediments in achieving getting an identification. And I thought, you know what, let's put the differences on election laws and election integrity aside for a moment, and let's fix this problem. And, it starts with us. And so right now we're deep in the middle of figuring out how many people actually in Michigan do have difficulty maintaining an ID or achieving an ID, and under what kind of conditions, what kind of categories, what are the actual constraints. And I am focused on us addressing this and removing this as a constraint, and then we can go back to the conversation about why it's important to have an ID to exercise one of our highest privileges and responsibilities, and that is to vote. And so that's really the genesis of it, Scott. And I invited anybody who wants to participate to help us identify first what are the obstacles, and then what are the solutions to removing those obstacles.
Senator, many of us of a certain age received a state picture ID in the form of a driver's license, and many of us got that just after we were eligible for a driver's license. For whatever reasons, many, or at least some today, fewer today I should say, are getting their driver's license when it's available to them, pushing it back some years perhaps because there are driver apps and Uber, and they don't need it for whatever reason. They don't want to drive, and there are many reasons. But that's sort of the natural way people ended up getting a picture ID in the past. Is there a need to consider this perhaps a different natural path for people to get an ID easily, as happened with driver's licenses? Yes.
And I think we need to go at it from both ends of the spectrum, from the young end of the spectrum going forward, and from the older people end of the spectrum coming backwards. And so let's start with the young. There's no reason. This is just an idea. I hope we have many, many other ideas, even better ideas. But this is just an idea. There's no reason why, when somebody graduates from high school in Michigan, they can be handed a diploma and an ID at the very same time, regardless of whether they decide to drive or get a driver's license or not. So that's just an example of moving in the direction of just removing it as a constraint. On the other end of the spectrum, there are folks who are homeless or locked in their homes for health reasons, etc., and we have to figure those out as well. And I'm inviting people to contemplate these kinds of various obstacles and help us think about and plan and execute ways in which we can, again, I can't help myself. I'm an engineer by training, and it's all about removing constraints.
Senator Mike Shirkey with us. Just a moment, and this might be a better, longer conversation for our next opportunity to chat, but it was just in the news that I did want to ask. We know that data from the census is going to be delayed, and the map-making process in Michigan is now out of lawmakers' hands. There's the redistricting panel and the commission. They have recently filed a suit asking the Michigan Supreme Court to grant them more time to draw the new voting maps because some of that data will be delayed. Have you had the opportunity to consider and perhaps have an opinion on whether or not they should be allowed more time to do this?
I'll tell you what we've done. We're in the process, literally as we speak, filing a motion to intervene on behalf of the legislature. We're not yet ready to propose specific actions or solutions, but we are first trying to establish that, at the very least, the legislature has a right and a reason to be involved in this because we're the ones representing the people of Michigan. The commission is way behind. Ostensibly, they're behind because the Census Bureau, the Federal Census Bureau, has not been timely in providing data. And there's a question on the table about the process here, and we are literally looking into the actual language that was put into the Constitution when people voted this in and changed the way we set districts up to see what pathway, what remedy is actually available per what we voted on to address the question of can anybody allow the commission more time or not. So it's a very unresolved, undefined, and very interesting question that we're dealing with right this second.
State Senator Mike Shirkey, the Senate Majority Leader, also the 16th District State Senator, Branch, Hillsdale, and Jackson counties. Find him at SenatorMikeShirkey.com. Find him on Facebook as well. Search for Senator Mike Shirkey. Senator, thank you so much for joining us here on Radio Free Hillsdale 101.7 FM.
You're welcome, Scott. Have a great day, and we'll talk to you soon.